I'm very psyched to present this opening event as a deep tech for digital transformation launchpad, or DT2 Invest Launchpad in short, about venturing in AI. As an intro note, I should mention that we are really glad that this project is funded and supported by the European Commission and 10 years at the DT2 Investment Support Program for the emerging fields of artificial intelligence and blockchain technologies that aims to reduce the investment gap for deep tech startups from both sectors. The project is being brought to you by France Digital, of which I'm a board member, and other European consortium members. And that this program also plans to build a bridge between existing European Commission and European investment transactions and other initiatives, with the final objective of making Europe a resounding funding ecosystem for local startups and improve their chances to access to finance. Tomorrow, for those of you who do not have the program yet, on the 17th, there will be a pitching session for blockchain and AI, and that will be organized for European startups to pitch in front of a jury of VCs and business angels. And you should be able to find the link to register for this in the app if you have not already. And you can, of course, contact the team if you have questions about that. So with no further ado, I'm really happy to introduce the panel today. First of whom, Luca Verre, CEO of Prophesee, a deep tech startup that he will tell you about it more in a second. Patrick Lord, who is a partner specialized in fintech and blockchain at Truffle Capital. And Raphaël Didier, who is director of development in Bpifrance Innovation Division. And myself, I'm a partner at Serena Capital. We're a strong believer in the AI space and as an early stage investor with a fund dedicated to this very space. Maybe we'll start with you guys maybe telling us a bit about what's your relationship with the AI and blockchain space and how you would characterize this ecosystem in Europe. Maybe starting with Luca.
I guess I was on mute. Hi, everyone. Thanks for. So I'm glad actually to be part of this event. I'm the co-founder of Prophesee. I co-founded Prophesee about 6 years ago in Paris. We develop neuromorphic vision technologies. So what we do is that we develop vision sensor which mimic the human eye, and we develop computer vision and AI algorithm which mimic the brain. So as opposed to conventional camera technologies like the one you can find in your phone, your IoT device at home, etc., which acquire information as a sequence of images at a fixed point in time, our technology works like biology, works like the human eye in particular. So our camera is not generating images at a fixed point in time, is only reacting to changes in the scene in a way that enable the acquisition to become extremely efficient and extremely fast. So our sensing device is then opening really the door of new applications, in particular in computer vision and artificial intelligence, because instead of actually processing a huge amount of useless data, which are coming very often from this stream of images, of frames, we only process few information of events, of what is relevant for very often a computer vision, machine vision, or machine learning task. So our mission with Prophesee is really to change the conventional paradigm of AI by basically enabling new application based on the way biology works, which is an incredibly efficient yet highly performing model for processing, in particular, in our case, visual information.
Thank you, and we'll get back to your experience as an AI entrepreneur a bit later. Patrick, maybe, if you're okay to begin.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. So Patrick Lord, a partner at Truffle Capital, we're a venture capital firm based in Paris. And for the last 20 years, we've been investing in high-tech companies. And we invest in life sciences and IT digital. And in the IT digital team, we focus on fintech and insurtech for the last 5 years. And the two most common technologies that we've seen being applied in these areas have been AI and blockchain. And right now we have a fintech fund of 140 million, 10 investments already, looking to do another 5 with that fund. And we're also launching a scale-up fund. So to very quickly answer your question around, the AI and blockchain system, I would say 2 years ago, almost every startup that pitched us, or most of them, had blockchain in the solution or in the roadmap. And 2 years later, it's switched around, and now almost every startup has AI in the product or in the roadmap, and the blockchain has kind of calmed down a bit. And well, we can see kind of how that's related to how the whole ICO ecosystem went through a flat phase. I think it was just a question of, it was really hype. There was lots of potential that people were looking for, and they kind of realized, okay, in terms of real applications, it's not that simple. So we are still looking at blockchain investments, although to be honest, right now, it's really exploding in the AI space, particularly in the fintech and shorttech sector.
And Raphaël? We can hear you, Raphaël. Maybe you're on mute.
Okay, is it better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So regarding Bpifrance, what we do is we finance and we invest in those ecosystems. So we support artificial intelligence and blockchain ecosystems since the creation. We have invested in AI since 4 or 5 years now. So we were really at the start of this emerging trend in France and in blockchain too. Just to give you some figures, 30% of our activity in 2019 included some AI bricks and some AI developments. So it has become really significant in our activity. For blockchain is much less mature. Even if we heard quite a lot of this new technology, as Patrick said just before, during the ICO phase. Now it's emerging. It's a technology that is emerging, and we see more and more, and we also support. So Bpifrance has quite strong activity in AI and blockchain, and this is something we support with the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so this really relates to what Patrick was saying with the AI being a major thing in the venture ecosystem right now. If you say 30% of your investments are in this space, with all the investment power of BPI in the venture ecosystem that we know. Okay, so maybe this is a good prompt for my second question, which is what do you think right now is the limiting factor of this ecosystem, especially compared to the ones that we have in China and in the US, which are still much bigger than the one we have in Europe? And the other side of this question is what would be the biggest challenge now as an AI or blockchain entrepreneur in Europe? Maybe starting with Luca on this one.
Yes, so I can take, of course, the perspective, the point of view of Prophesee, of my company. So I started this company about 5 years ago. We raised until now about 65 million euros, and we raised this funding from a bunch of corporate and financial venture capital from all over the places, actually. So among the corporate, I can mention, for example, Bosch, Intel, Renault, Nissan, Sony, and on the financial side, 360 Capital, Bionex, Supernova Invest, etc. So and actually in the history of the investment, we did our first major fundraising in Europe. Actually, was led by investors here in Europe. The second was led by investors in the US, and the third one by investors in Asia. So the next.
So you sort of know a bit about the three different ecosystems.
Yes. So what I can certainly say is that for our technology, our technology has two major components. The first component is the semiconductor component, because we are a fabless semiconductor company, so we develop our own, we design and develop our own chip, our own IC device. And the second component is the AI side of it, so if you want the software side of it. Actually, for the first part, which is the semiconductor part, certainly Asia is the major ecosystem for actually to manufacture our technology, or also in terms of partners in the supply chain. While actually in terms of end customer, if you want, there is a lot actually happening in the US. The reason why, in fact, we managed to attract investors in Asia. Why? Because we came from the manufacturing angle, and we managed to attract investors in the US because there is a clear interest in terms of exploitation of the technology for commercial usages. So our experience has been very often driven by the corporate, I must say, for these two different aspects. One, because in Asia there is an ecosystem of supply chain of manufacturing for sensing technologies, for hardware technologies, especially in the semiconductor space. You can certainly see how much effort, investment, focus now is being put in China, in particular for hardware AI companies. While actually in the US, I think the angle was more in terms of this new AI paradigm generated by our hardware stack level.
Okay, so basically, yeah, the manufacturing in Asia, the demand in the US, and the talent in Europe, if I get it right.
Yeah, you can say so, because today we are, of course, our R&D is in France, although we have commercial offices now elsewhere. But yes, France remains, and Europe in general remains a very strong pool and ecosystem of great engineers for both actually hardware design and software development.
Okay. And so, Patrick, still talking about the limiting factor of our ecosystem, when or what will it take, do you think, in your opinion, to get a 100 billion company emerging in Europe from this space? Because we already have unicorns or even decacorns in Europe. We have in AI/blockchain with the Telegram, which is a German company, Celonis, also German, UiPath, Romanian, DT2, French, or Benevolent AI or Raphaël in the UK. What do you think is the missing ingredient to build a European GAFA out of this space?
Maybe time. I think actually, we have all the right things are coming together. We got the talent, we got the investment. We have VCs that now have been investing for 10, 15, 20 years. You've got repeat entrepreneurs who are moving on from successful companies to then move into help start new companies in the space. And so, if you look at the Series A of 5 years ago, that's become the seed of now. And, over time, it's gonna keep moving in that direction. So we are kind of catching up with the US way of investing. We're not there yet. There's a way to go. But I think, all the right kind of factors are coming together. There's one thing I would say, if I come back to the limiting factors question, which is if you look at AI technology needs to be trained, and it needs to be trained on data, and it needs to be trained on lots of data. And with the GDPR in Europe, then that is a challenge that companies are going to have to work their way around in order to build their AI solutions. So there's, opt-in solutions. There are some anonymization type technologies which we're seeing more and more of, and actually one of our companies recently does that as well. So Yeah, I think that probably one of the largest limiting factors around GDPR and the way that you are allowed to use data in order to train the systems and then to deliver, you know, AI or enhanced solutions. But I think we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, cool. And Raphaël, what would be your take on this as well?
I know for the moment. So on the B2C side, it's quite regarding AI. It's quite difficult to see, you know, future champions. But on the B2B side, we have lots of opportunities, and some startups are starting to be really well positioned on this segment. So I think that in Europe and in France, we have the potential to develop some unicorns on the B2B, which has the most potential for us. Regarding the limiting factors, I think there are two. As Patrick said, regulation is one. So we have to tackle this thing and make it an opportunity using data with ethics and using it properly. It can be a different thing. Factors compared to how it is used in the US or in China. And the second one is adoption. Adoption by companies, adoption by corporates, and the way they will adopt and take this technology and put it to a large scale is really key for the development of our ecosystem. Regarding blockchain, I would say that regulation is still quite a limiting factor because it starts to be more and more, the constraints are coming up, and we don't really know also how it will evolve in the future.
Yeah, that's maybe a different point altogether, because most of the companies I cited before, they're AI centric. They're not blockchain companies. Maybe Patrick, you started in the introduction by telling us that blockchain was a bit out of love from VCs all over. Why is that, and what do you think is missing to make it a really compelling technology right now?
Well, I think it still is a very compelling technology. It's just it's a question of the application areas. You've got two areas where someone can invest in blockchain. If I make it really simple, you've got kind of the protocol layer stuff, and really the best way to invest in that is via the token economics, and that's where most of the the ICO craze really started and generated so much investment in these companies. And then you've got the application layer, and the application layer has struggled to justify why blockchain technology is the best technology for the given task. So some of the best areas have been things like in trade finance, in payment for remittance, but there's not that many areas that are, when we talk to our LPs, they're banks, insurers, reinsurers, financial institutions, and we talk about what are the biggest pain points that they're trying to address right now. Well, they're talking about digital transformation, customer experience, digital distribution, and these kind of things are right now the technology that's really helping solve those is more the AI type technologies, and the blockchain is not solving quite so obviously or so easily some of these pressing concerns that they have, and particularly with the COVID crisis, it's gone even higher on their agenda. They're looking for ways to exploit data, to monetize data better, monetize the asset that they have. Banks have bank statements, reams of data about customer, activities that they can exploit if the customer agrees, of course. So we come back to GDPR again on some of it. There is a place for blockchain, but for us as an investor, firstly, we don't invest in coins because our funds are not configured that way to do so. There are VCs who are configured specifically to invest in tokens and token economics. We're not configured like that. So we want to invest in companies, and the companies have to have strong applications. And someone once asked me, you know, how do I pitch my blockchain to a company, to a VC? And my answer was, don't call yourself a blockchain company. You've got to call yourself whatever it is that you know what you're solving. On blockchain, you need to really show that it's critical to the solution.
Thank you. And maybe coming back to Luca specifically, do you think that also one of the key that could help further the AI ecosystem is to maybe focus more on deep tech startups as opposed to maybe companies applying, you know, a more common machine learning technologies to a verticalized application, for instance, to a business solution, and that maybe there is not enough focus, but or enough funding, but on companies that really are working on strong IP and deep tech research.
Yes.
That resonates with your experience, maybe as a founder. I don't know.
I would agree because it relates a lot to what Prophesee is doing. So we are trying to. We are not, of course. I mean, we are entering the AI ecosystem through this very different semiconductor approach. So we have, if you want, we have a different camera technology, sensor technology that is creating a new type of data. And because we generate a new type of data, basically that is very unique, it has very nice properties, etc. We are basically saying, okay, with this type of data, with this new sensing device, we have new type of data, so we enter the machine learning space, the AI space, with a different way of doing machine learning, which we believe is much more efficient, with also properties in terms of speed, etc. So yes, I think that there are opportunities to differentiate in the AI space, taking an angle which is maybe, as you say, maybe more deep tech. Certain companies, like for example, Truffle is also addressing the same problem with a dedicated AI chip, a different hardware approach. Although there is now actually a growing, there's been in the past 2-3 years, there's been a growing ecosystem of AI chips, and more than 80-90 companies now out there. So it's also quite difficult to compete and to differentiate. But certainly is a good approach, because another way, which I think why it's also difficult to differentiate maybe at the service level, is the fact that you have already the giants, the GAFAM, that are extremely present, and they have already a size, a volume of data, of services that are already providing services which are just enough. So finding different approaches using conventional technology is not trivial, right? Unless you really think about something more deeper in the way we process data.
If deep tech is one of the keys to differentiate with GAFA, like you said, for European startups, and that VCs usually tend not to invest in a company with a very long time frame before go to market.
And this would be maybe, sorry to jump on that question, because this was probably a comment I would have loved to do on the previous question, actually. The reason, also the fundamental reason why Prophesee eventually ended up raising money in the US or in Asia was not necessarily our own choice. Was almost unavoidable to some extent, because the pool of potential lead investor capable to
that was my point. Yes, exactly. That's the landscape of VCs in Europe that are able to fund the company before time to market, especially in deep tech. It's really scarce. Right. So maybe turning back to Raphaël, what are the solutions that companies, founders have when they're trying to do something really deep tech to fund their company at the very start?
So first of all, you really know that we have launched a deep tech plan to help finance those kind of projects. So it has been launched in 2019. It will take time until it is really in place, and that entrepreneurs like Luca can find financing solutions in Europe and especially in France. I think it's a matter of time. It's a matter of development of a growing ecosystem that will be able to finance larger and larger amounts of deals. What we see today in France is that the size of funds is increasing. It's approaching 300 million euros now per new fund created. So we see larger and larger funds that will be able to finance those new technologies. Entrepreneurs also need to be able to attract the right talents. And in AI, we have the chance in France to have a very good and well-educated pool of talents on this topic. So this is something that can be a differentiator. Also, the main challenge is to make sure we are able to attract them in our French and or European companies and keep them on the territory. And this is also an aspect of the AI plan from the French government that tries to make sure that most of the talents in France may stay in France at least for a time, or maybe also that we attract talents that have immigrated in the US and try to make them come back in France. But this is also a key success factor for the development of such companies.
That's very true. To take an example, I think all French people in the AI space know the MVA master in France, and maybe, I don't know, 2/3 of the new grads go right away to the GAFAMs right after school. So it's really an issue there. So talent is clearly one of the limiting factors. And not only technical talent, I would say, from my perspective as an investor in a lot of AI startups, I would say we also have some scarcity. I don't know if it's the same in the UK, Patrick, of executives who, because our ecosystem is still young, who are able to make the go-to-market part a reality for these very specific technical products. Now we can hear you, sorry. You're in mute, Patrick.
Yeah. So I moved to France about 15 years ago, and I consider myself far more French than British now, particularly with the Brexit. And actually, that was one of our decisions not to invest in that area. So it's really not within our particular focus at the moment.
Okay, so maybe just from your experience as a VC.
I think the AI plan of BPI is really great and really needed, really helpful. We work with a number of research institutions in order to create some companies. We actually do create the old company from scratch, and one of them is MoneyTrack, which is a blockchain solution. That was via research.
What's your secret sauce for acquiring great go-to-market talent, such as VP sales and CMOs, which are so scarce in France right now?
Well, the first thing obviously is via the network. So we have a network of entrepreneurs that we've been working with for the last 20 years. And then we leverage on that network in order to find, the right talent. Usually, there are repeat entrepreneurs looking for the next project. And so, in the case of MoneyTrack, for example, the CEO, he just finished, he just sold his last company and was ready for the next opportunity. And so the prime mechanism is leveraging the network that we already have, because we're interacting all the time with entrepreneurs, startups, and also with investors into our fund.
Okay, so I guess this loops back to your first comment that to make a 100 billion company, it will take time for the ecosystem to provide the talent in our networks, in our investors, our CEOs network, and hopefully build the next GAFAM out of Europe. Thanks everyone for this panel. It was very lovely. I don't know if one of you has a closing remark. Nope. Okay. Very good. Thank you, everyone.